Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal. You can call me Sweaty in Massachusetts.
Sweaty in Massachusetts. That doesn't quite roll off the tongue as cleanly and nicely.
No. I went from one single letter to really the maximalist approach.
So what are you doing in Massachusetts? You're not supposed to be traveling, you know.
Yeah, and in fact, as you enter Massachusetts, it says we recommend all travelers quarantine for 14 days. So I'm doing the opposite. I've been very cautious during this quarantine, but ultimately I had this moment where I just desperately wanted to see my family, be near the ocean, and I realized that I hadn't been near the ocean since I moved the last move. So it's been like a few years since I just straight up smelled that sea breeze air, which is, I didn't realize, so meaningful to me. Something that I really needed in my life. But so I didn't take a plane. Jess and I got into a car, stayed sealed up, mask and gloves the whole way. And then we kind of came and saw our families and are now trying to, just do the togetherness thing. Cook meals for each other, have meals cooked for us. For God's sake, so many of us, I'm so tired of ordering or cooking for myself. I was done.
Well, that's nice. It's good to be able to get out there and reconnect with family a little bit.
Yeah. Are you, I know you're in the Pacific Northwest. Is your family from out there too?
Yeah, my parents live pretty close by, actually. So I can, I drop over there every once in a while, maybe once every month or two. But yeah, it's real handy to kind of have them around, and, it's nice nice for a good dinner every once in a while.
It's a shame I couldn't share this room with you, H, because my brother owns this house that allegedly a woman met a violent end. Let's say that.
Oh, really?
And there's this children's room that I'm staying in right now that has a very cursed, unfinished Sonic the Hedgehog and Cast mural being drawn on the wall.
Wait, did she die painting Sonic the Hedgehog?
You know what? I can't piece that together. I don't know if this was for a children's room that never happened. I don't know if this is she was a Sonic fan. It looks kind of like Sonic Adventure aesthetic Sonic. It's actually quite a good drawing, but it's not finished, and it is it's a little ominous to be staring at, to be honest with you. So
I think you're living in the midst of a creepypasta right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. This actually feels like something out of one of our pitches.
Well, we can use that energy. Let's go into our video game pitches and see if we can pull that kind of creepy creative spirit forward.
I'm ready.
And then maybe, we can leave the recording running for a little bit and see if we hear any kind of whispers from an avid gamer from beyond the pale.
Yes, please. If anybody has access to this audio, please turn it way up and see if you hear any sort of white noise, or I'll look for my photos for, what are they called? Like dots or specks or something?
Yeah, the orbs. Yeah.
Orbs. That's right. How could I forget orbs?
Let's get to some video game pitches. I'm going to be going first today, and what I'm bringing in is a game played with an RGB keyboard.
Oh.
And so I'm just kind of trying to think about like what kinds of mini games you can program with an RGB keyboard. So I've got a keyboard that lights up in all sorts of fun and funny colors, and it has different like light patterns. I can make like a rotating wheel of rainbow colors. There's some that I can download that are like supposed to look like a little visualizer of like Pac-Man sweeping across the keyboard and eating some dots and being chased by ghosts and stuff like that. So, it's kind of fun. And I was just thinking that, there's not a lot of, if you talk about pixel density, it's about as undense as it can be, but you get a lot of freedom to program in the colors, and there's a lot of reactivity. If you hit one key, you can do the kind of rippling lights outwards. So just trying to think about what we can do on a RGB mechanical keyboard. So I'm going to start the clock there.
One of the things I kind of have in my mind, it's funny you said not many pixels. We're kind of dealing with the pixel density of like one of these highway signs almost, like these big construction worker stop ahead or something like that. Very limited sort of squares.
You only get 6 rows of them though, so.
Right, even less than that. So no words are being formed here potentially.
Maybe something like run, I don't know. Because another thing about keyboards is that the keys are not in a perfect grid. Like every line is kind of off center from the others.
Yeah, so you have this offset thing. I almost start going into my mind of like, you know how an RGB keyboard, I mean, you're staring at one, you have this sort of the directional pad off to the right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could maybe get into some of those super rudimentary like calculator and cell phone games, like a Snake potentially could work on something like this. And if you use the directional pads off to the right and treated the keys as a screen or something like that, that could potentially be something.
Yeah, certainly. You can also do a pretty mean game of whack-a-mole as well, having keys illuminate, and then you tap the key to get rid of the mole. Maybe there can be different colors of moles, some that you're not supposed to hit, and perhaps every time you hit one of the moles, it kind of radiates out in a kind of a rainbow ring of color that kind of obscures your vision a little bit, making the other moles that kind of pop up more difficult to find.
I wonder if you could do almost like a rhythm game, but, and I'm looking at a Mac keyboard right now, but imagine like the WS or like 2WSX3EDC for, I mean, like this sort of diagonal, almost follow these little diagonal paths. And if you had 4 colored, almost Guitar Hero like streams coming in at those, and then you had to use the very bottom row to execute on the beat, I think you could actually do kind of a convincing rhythm game on there.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. You don't get a lot of runway on those, but
no, maybe you do the like OK M or 0 OK and M and have it cascade left to right or something on the keyboard.
I have a program that is like an audio visualizer for my keyboard. So when I'm running the program, all the keyboard lights go off, but when sound plays through my computer, then it shows like the waveform or the, the like on the keyboard, and so it kind of like reacts to the sound. So we can do something that synchronizes with sound. We can do things that synchronize with video elements on screen, even.
I guess you didn't necessarily make it a requirement that you have staring at the keyboard as the only display, right?
Yeah, but I want to make sure it is a display, so we're not just using our light up keyboard to play a game on computer, because that's what we do all the time anyways.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if there's one of the things I thought was interesting Apple did in with this touch bar is they actually have UI to rearrange elements on the touch bar, and you can actually take something from the screen and drag it onto the like keyboard display bar. Now, of course, this is like a high fidelity bar, but I wonder if there's something that like almost uses it like a Nintendo DS screen, where something like cascades from your computer screen onto your keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit more compelling in like a laptop form factor, but potentially I do like the idea of something being able to kind of, I don't know what this term slither, I'm back onto Snake, I guess, onto your keyboard or through your keyboard. Or can you, I guess this is maybe just a standard video game thing, but I love the idea of like a BioShock-like hacking mini game or those type of mini games where you have to like switch between playing the game and kind of this pace changing mini game, and that's all entirely through the lights that happen on the keyboard. You gotta have to sort of use them as on off switches to connect a full path.
You could do like a memorization game where you show a detailed picture on the computer screen, give people like 15 seconds to look it over, and then basically transfer that picture to the keyboard lights. And so it's much, much, much lower fidelity. And you have to guess like, where was the woman in the hat? Where was the alligator? And like tap on the key closest to where you think it was in the picture, using only kind of your vague memory and the little cues and anchor points from the lights and the colors.
The thing that we had access all to as a kid, maybe this is just as simple as this, because I'm surprised this doesn't exist, even with like the first party Logitech software and those kind of things, is Light Bright, right? We had Light Bright as a kid, and an RGB keyboard is kind of the ultimate Light Bright, because you can, I mean, of course you'd like additional density, like the idea of just being able to kind of like hit H and like click through all the colors of the rainbow until you have the one you want, and slowly like build a portrait and then do like these designs and be able to publish them somewhere or something like that. Like you almost get a Miiverse like simplicity of input.
I like that. I mean, Miiverse did come out with some pretty impressive drawings.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'd be able to do anything as impressive on a keyboard, but you never know. You've got to put the tools in people's hands and you'll be impressed by what they are able to come up with.
Yeah, even if you were getting something like using your computer screen as, because you have all the pixels there, to do like a word prompt or almost like a Pictionary-esque like tree, and then like, okay, you're using your keyboard and you're clicking it to the colors and trying to construct something that is tree-like. And because the input is so limited, you could probably program the computer to recognize like basic tree-ish patterns.
That'd be fun. Or you play like a party game almost, where like each person is given prompts. They have to like click in. It could be like on people's phones, and then there's like one keyboard that people have to work with. You get your prompt, you kind of like create a display using a light bright like system, and then other people guess by, you know, typing in their guesses into their phones and see who gets it.
That could be cool.
Or if you have, kind of similar to my previous idea, if you had like a picture on screen that you have to reproduce using the keyboard, trying to come as close to the picture as possible. And then maybe that could be like a competitive thing. Whoever's able to get closest to the original picture ends up winning.
I think when you're telling me about the waveform display on your keyboard, it makes me think about how impressive and almost Christmas lights-esque the type of keyboard display could be. And so I wonder if you do something where using the like left and right or the up and down arrows on your keyboard, you can almost adjust the speed of two like pulses that are pulsing in towards the center of the keyboard and trying to get them to sync up with each other. So it's almost like a rhythmish sort of thing, but it's more like, can your eye discern the speed at which the two patterns would perfectly collide with each other?
Or you can do a submarine exploration game and have the light up keyboard function as the radar, and have the viewport be so dark that it's practically useless, and so you really have to pay attention.
That's really fun. Oh man, and you could do like a single red light as like you're firing missiles display, and just see it kind of like, because it would be like very blip, 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 the way that those old radar systems were. It'd be pretty easy to display, I would think, or pretty easy to read, rather.
Yeah, potentially. But of course, if you were using a mechanical keyboard in a real submarine, then you would be able to be heard and spotted from miles off.
You could also, I like the idea of having a SteamWorld dig type of experience where you could actually click off keys on the keyboard and somehow be like building ramps and digging downward on screen with the sort of stairwells and stuff that you're constructing on your keyboard.
I mean, you could also do I wonder how this would work, like a game of like hand twister. Have different colored quadrants on the keyboard, and you have to like press all of the buttons with one hand. And I don't know if you can get another person involved somehow, but seems like a good way to damage the keyboard as well. Like
as a multiplayer co-op game too, like you could, or not a multiplayer co-op game, but multiplayer competitive, you could do like a super crazy elaborate online Simon. So then like each key lights up in one of the like major key colors, and forget about just going for, like have people like type entire phrases and stuff, and you just see the pattern all pluck out very quickly in these bright colors, and you got to remember what they typed or what they said. Hopefully we can filter out some naughty language.
That's good. Let's wrap it up and give it a name.
We made a lot of mini games, didn't we? I wonder if there's like a
there has to be like the key ring or key bank, like a bank of games. I mean, lots of puns on keys, I'm sure.
I mean, I hate to tell you this, but cinematography, right? Key light definitely is a term. I wonder if there's something funny to do like WASD, or like, because it's all these like created games. Maybe this thing is just a platform on which people can make different sorts of keyboard games, and you call it like Dvorak's Dreams.
That's a different keyboard layout, isn't it?
I know it is, yeah. Well, not in his wildest dreams could he think about this. The WASD touch type key link. What did you call it? Key frame?
Key ring is what, because like like keeping your keys on, or keychain even.
Keychain's pretty good.
Keychain works, I think. Yeah, it's like multiple links in the chain. I like that. Keychain. That'll do it for us today. Q, what are you bringing us?
Well, this is I've had this weird idea, and maybe it's just an emotion or something, but maybe we can form this into something. We both have these kind of help me sort of pitches today. My pitch is a narrative-driven game of sorts where you have maybe Stardew Valley like energy that you can put in a day, and then you kind of have to call it quits. There's so many actions you can perform, but you're either playing as an attendant in a nursing home where you sort of not only have tasks to accomplish, but you're trying to learn about the stories of the lives of the people who are in there. Maybe you could do some sort of Edith Finch style thing where you visit their lives as they tell them, but you're learning about these people, you're building relationships with them, and I mean, eventually you're at some point going to be spending their last days with each of them as well. So the feeling of being kind of a person who learns to grow and love all these people and then deal with the, inevitable loss to follow.
So I hesitate to suggest this because I don't know if it's going to come off as being insensitive, but if we want to incorporate aspects of like degrading mental state or dementia and have these stories that you access later or stories that you access like repeat from stories that you accessed before, like change in substantial ways as people forget certain details or imagine other things or get stories confused. And so, I don't know if you have to, or if you're kind of going every day through everyone's memories and getting the full story, or whether each day you can choose, 2 memories to visit or something like that. And then kind of throughout the course of the playthrough, you can choose to visit the same memories over and over, or you can choose to visit, one from everybody, knowing that the ones that you hit on the last day are going to be the least reliable, or it would encourage multiple playthroughs.
I think that's interesting. I mean, and I don't even know if it has to go into the realm of like this person has dementia or what. Like, you just have a worse memory when you're old, right? So, yeah. I do like the idea of there being something of a calendar, and maybe there's, depending on the day, depending on, maybe somebody's medication cycle or what's being served as food that day, or who they happen, like if their family's visiting or not. These are all things that could potentially trigger or suppress different memories for people. And so there is one of my favorite movies is called Awakenings. Have you seen this movie? Yeah. I love this movie, and it's not fully explored, but it's really implied that the nurses that work at this sort of hospital for the, I guess it would be like mentally disabled in a way, but there's like an implied like relationship of eventually you learn, so-and-so, even if it's simple as so-and-so doesn't like peas. Like if there's peas on the menu, just like scrape out the peas before you go and bring him or her their tray. And that can go a long way into how they feel they're being treated or the reputation. And I think I like the idea of playing with the idea of you can only really get the full story from someone if you spend the right days with them and knowing that like you will miss out on stuff, right? Just the straight up, if you really want it all, and maybe your goal shouldn't be to have it all. It should just be to like have the experience that you had that playthrough.
I think it's interesting because it's a lot of content to create these kind of multi like state dependent versions of these stories, but it also seems more manageable for something of that scope because you are reusing a lot of the same assets. It's not like you're building from scratch every single time.
And you could really control the cast, right? Like if it's down to like it's a super small nursing home and there are 12 feels like a lot. Maybe there's like 6 or 8-ish people who you're caring for. Maybe it could just be a wing, right, of a potential nursing home. What other things? I know the nursing home situation in America at least is complicated and kind of a mess, and there's not necessarily a high standard of care. So I don't know if this game should get into telling some of that stuff and you're playing as somebody with, emotion and input and agency that could drive these conversations, or if it's more of you're a blank slate and more listening and observing.
Yeah. That could be an aspect of it. Maybe there's a nurse or two there that does a particularly poor job with certain patients. And so you have to find, ways to maybe kind of like throw him or her off the regular course, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Try to make sure that the people get the treatment they need.
Yeah. I do like the idea of maybe a playthrough starting with, or your canonical playthrough starting with you making some really basic choices about who your character is. Like, what do they have a background in? Maybe something on the gender spectrum. And then, of course, like you could have maybe something on the racial spectrum too, right? And then by making those choices, right, naturally, maybe different patients respond to you in different ways. Like if you are a person of color, I'd hate to say that you're going to experience racism from an old white person, but A, that's pretty likely, and B, you're probably having a heavy enough dose of that in real life. You don't necessarily want your game to, but or being the cute orderly that all the old ladies or all the old men are hitting on. I love being able to have that sort of old young, this is never going to happen, but we're going to flirt with each other anyway kind of relationship.
Yeah, and if you're a different type of person, people will reveal different details as they're kind of retelling these stories that you're experiencing as well.
Yeah. And you could do maybe like a Fire Emblem Three Houses thing where, Sunday nights is like bingo night or something like that. And that's the one night where everybody for sure is all together and you can kind of see them interact with each other or get them talking or have some sort of shaping effect as to like what the next few weeks will look like.
So, we can set, of course, these kind of memory sequences all across kind of time and history. I mean, not all across time, but,
yeah,
you could set it back in the 1940s or, during any of the wars that have happened since then, or during family moments, things like that. Maybe kind of incorporating different art styles for the different characters as they kind of remember their own lives differently or choose to express it differently in a way that's kind of reminiscent of their personality.
Yeah, it would be kind of nice. And then to have, if you had this voice acted or a wonderful cast of voice actors, for the voice actors to be able to have the range of kind of doing the younger narration of their same characters and getting to see that character in their prime or being alongside them, feeling like it could just be as simple as if you sit and listen long enough to somebody and get a complete enough story that you're able to visit maybe just something as simple as like a frozen vignette, of their life, a snapshot in time that is almost like a freeze-framed animation where you can kind of just walk around and maybe there's photos you can take. Maybe you can have like a 5-minute stretch that's not, there's not a ton of interactivity, but it becomes this thing that you yourself you're allowed to take like one photo away from each of these vignettes for your own. It's kind of a weird, selfish, like memory hoarding game at that point. But I do like the idea of, after you take that picture, that becomes like something that the person gives to you. They take it out of a locket or something and they're like, here's this picture. And it's the picture you took, but then like at the end of the game, you've essentially collected these photos that is a combination of your time with that person and the story that they told you.
Interesting. So there would be a way is this something that somebody in the memory would give you or what the person would in real life be giving you?
Yeah. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm talking to, let's pick an old person named Gertrude or something. Mm-hmm. And, eventually I spent enough time with her, built enough rapport where she's talking to us about, something that did happen back when she was a kid. She went to this, discotheque or something. And there was she went ballroom dancing and you go back in time, you're seeing her young, she's beautiful, all this stuff. During that vignette, maybe it's just like a 5-minute period of time, or it's just this like animation that's playing and you can actually walk around the space like you have a camera You can find the angle that you want. It's almost like a photo mode for this moment. And then when you take the picture, whatever that picture is, it kind of like snaps you back into your reality. And Gertrude in real life kind of goes into this old, cardboard box or like tin that she's had forever. And she takes out this photo and she's like, I want you to have this to remember me. And it's the photo that you took.
That's cool. Let's wrap that one and give it a name.
I feel like there's like everybody gone to the Last of Us. There's something called like All That Remains or something, isn't there?
I think that sounds familiar.
I'm trying to think of something that suggests like you almost can't believe that you were here this long. Like you want these people to feel like they had full, rich lives. You don't want to go down too much of a dark.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like The Good Old Days or something like that?
That's not bad.
And
good old days.
Then if you want to make the whole thing a comedy bent, then you can really play up the fact that it's old in the middle. The Good Old Days.
That's a nice one. I like that. The Good Old Days. Let's move over to the community. This piece comes from Robert Lee, who submitted it to our website at playwrightcast.com/pitch, who says, "G'day, Ryans. I hope this one isn't too depressing, but I've been thinking a lot about the kinds of places were existing when I was a kid that have since completely vanished. Specifically video stores and video game arcades. Since I know Q loves Sims, I was wondering what an arcade or video store sim might look like, set during a time when they were dying as an industry." Go ahead and start the clock there.
It's funny that Robert said, since I'm no Q, because I worked in 2 video stores in my youth. Yeah. First it was a sort of local neighborhood video store, and then eventually the behemoth Blockbuster.
Working your way up in the world, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Blockbuster, turns out, loves people with video store previous experience.
An aspect of this I'm interested in is the idea of actually stocking the store in the first place. I would love to.
Yes.
I think it would just be so much fun to like come up with 400 titles of videos and cover arts and everything that you can just kind of stock the shelves with. And
yeah.
But you have to like order each tape. And I guess it's a little bit different than stocking a supermarket, because those products actually leave the store when they're purchased, whereas videotapes, I mean, you can put a certain number on the shelves. I remember whenever a new release came out, there always used to be 2 bookshelves full of them.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later they'd be on the sale shelf. So I guess there still is an aspect of that, but I would just love to be able to come up with all those fake movie names and to have some sort of a system for determining what's popular and try to kind of almost playing the stock market, guessing what's going to be a hit next.
Right, and trying to figure out how many copies to get of each thing.
Yeah.
Or when to sell them off, right? Maybe customers come up to you and they're like, "Can I just buy this?" And you're like, maybe that's lost future income. One of the things I learned working in a video store is that it doesn't matter what's good, it only matters what's new. Where you would have, like you said, 2 full bookshelves. Forget about bookshelves. I mean racks, top to bottom, filled with copies of Geely or Failure to Launch, and they'd be totally sold out. And then you'd have your Godfather Part 1, 2, and 3 collecting dust in the middle shelves where nobody really ventured except for the true movie enthusiast. So I wonder, to your point about stocking things, if, Robert says he wants to set this during the industry. So I think that's when you started, right at the end of this industry is when you really started to get the very buy 2, get 2 free, the really deep discounts and the craziness and the late fee forgiveness and all of this stuff. At the peak of this industry, if you were late for a couple days, they try and get you for $15 or something like that on one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a economic sim structure here that you have to set your late fee prices, set your coupons for the week, and that sort of stuff.
You talked about the new titles always being the real popular ones, but I feel like there was something, and this is something we don't really have anymore, especially since the kind of equivalent rental spaces like Netflix and Amazon Prime tend to rotate out their thumbnails and cover arts.
Yes.
But there used to be
I know what you're talking about.
Kind of some legendary tapes that people just rented because they had very memorable films like Dead Alive, where people know it just because they walked past it and always kind of caught their eyes. Like, oh, that's weird. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you, in working from video stores, find that unremarkable movies with really remarkable cover arts tended to move more quickly?
I don't know about that, but I do remember just, even if it was a movie that I had never seen before, going back and stocking it, or certain films would always catch your eye in the aisle. For me,
Yeah.
I believe it's Soderbergh's The Fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
What a insane cover that is. There's either the one that has like, it's just a giant picture of a fly, and I believe do you remember the weird plastic sleeves that would go over VHS boxes sometimes?
Yeah.
that one had like an embossed plastic sleeve, so like the fly itself had like texture and would catch the light and that sort of stuff.
It's something that we've kind of lost in a way. I think that, films do have posters that they use for their theatrical releases, but
yeah, it's not the same at all.
Like kind of past the first run of something on Blu-ray or DVD even, you'll get like alternate covers, usually like the Harry Potter movies, like
right.
The only way to purchase them, the Marvel movies, the only way to purchase them are in these like weird minimalistic covers that are all like kind of color coded with the rest of the series.
Right.
Solid color backgrounds, close up on the character's face. Yeah.
To just speak to you of like, you didn't buy all of them, right? Like this is just trying to tell you there's more of them to get here. Yeah. And movies didn't used to be like that. Like even as Hollywood would update box art or cover art, like the video store still had its video copy. Mm-hmm. So I remember also very distinctly, because it wasn't actually, people said streaming killed Blockbuster. Actually, getting Netflix DVDs by mail really killed Blockbuster. Yeah. And I think like what made sure that was shoved into the ground was Redbox even, right? Like this can be a disc that comes out of a vending machine. You don't have to talk to anybody to get it. So I do know this. Video stores really count on the sale of snacks and candy, popcorn, that sort of stuff. And if they have any sort of stupid games or attractions in their store, like even something as simple as like the crane game, those are weirdly large revenue generators, because the margins on renting movies is either so standard across the industry, or it's I guess it's not enough to prop up a business.
It's odd because you're not paying royalties on the rentals, are you?
No, but I do think like to buy a movie with the rights to rent it, you are paying something like, potentially $100+ or hundreds of dollars per tape.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So Hollywood had a whole like fee structure. That's why like the late fees were such a big thing, because every day it wasn't there, they weren't making their like money back on the tape.
Yeah.
What else? So this is a cool thing to, I think, have in a game, and a very gamified thing. This is actually, I played it as a game, is that you kind of at different points throughout the day, people just return things, but they don't return them to you necessarily. They return them to the return bin, right? They just put them in like this mail slot, and they're all collected in like a recycling bin type thing. And then you yourself you eventually get pretty good at knowing the locations of all the hundreds of movies in the store. Because you're getting them without the covers. You're just getting, like the VHS and the little label that says, something like Beetlejuice. And then you're like, oh, Beetlejuice is over here. It's definitely next to this thing, because we've got an alphabetical, right? Or stuff like that. So I think you'd have a fun job potentially laying out your store, and then having to like time yourself and give yourself these little personal bests on how long it takes you to restock certain amounts of videos, like the 100 restock, the 50, 25, that sort of thing.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a certain kind of meditative joy to reorganizing and restocking the returned videos as well.
Yeah. At People's Choice, we would just get a little stack of 5 or 10. The store was super small and we would just put them back. But at Blockbuster, we would have to go get a cart and actually like put all of the DVDs or the videos on the cart, and then like slowly go through aisle by aisle. And very often people would approach you and They'd be like, I see you putting back this copy. Can I have it right from your cart? So you wouldn't even get a chance to put it back on the shelf before it would leave your hands.
I mean, that's it's kind of similar to running a library as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's go ahead and call that one and give it a name. We can call it Busting the Block.
Yeah, busting the block. And then what do we call ourselves? Block Booster or something? Some not suable fake video store?
Yeah, who's going to sue us at this point anyway?
That's true. Well, all we know is they're definitely going to make you wear a blue polo and khakis, which is the least flattering outfit on just about anybody.
All right. Thanks again to Robert Lee for writing in. If you would like to submit something of your own, you can do so by going to playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can email us playwrightcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at playwrightcast.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And while you're listening to things, why not go check out the Kane and Rinse podcast for video game reviews, the Sausage Factory for interviews with game developers, and Sound of Play to listen to video game music. Is it game or jame?
Sorry, are you asking if it's video game or video jame?
That's right. Well, the creator says jame, so I'm worried that I've been saying it wrong all along.
Which creator is this?
Oh man, listen, you're quizzing me in real time here. I'm gonna say the Pong guy.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
Look it up.
Well, yeah, I'll look into that. It's not something I'd ever thought I would have to contend with.
Let me ask you this. Do you owe me a redacted video game?
I do indeed. Before we get to that, I wanted to point out that we have new artwork now. So if any of you are seeing something that looks a little bit different than the 3-planet arrangement, the very subtle 3-planet arrangement we've been rolling with for the past year.
The nesting.
Yeah, this is something new. It kind of represents a certain disruption to the system. You know, the entire system is collapsing upon itself. So we'll see if that manifests in the coming year.
It's not stable. It feels something like do you remember the original Xbox like startup?
Yeah.
It feels like the blobular sort of stuff going on. I'd love to see it animated.
That's right. Well, anyways, so kind of a belated welcome to the new season of Playwright. We've got a lot more good stuff in front of us this year, so let's do it big.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, a redacted game for today. I am bringing you. Okay, so only the redacted can turn an everyday act into an art form, and now players can step into the redacted's redacted shoes and use cunning stealth to sneak up behind unsuspecting people and redacted them with a redacted. The goal of Redacted is to surprise Redacted with Redacted and other redacted items throughout the day before they pass out from Redacted. Whether in a logging yard, construction site, redacted, or downtown urban scene, each rich with detail and hidden pathways, players can hide out and earn points based on how elaborate the redacted is executed.
I feel like you gave me a lot in all the settings that you mentioned. Construction yard? What was it? Construction yard neighborhood?
So a logging yard, a construction site, redacted, or downtown urban scene.
So in my mind, I'm like, this is a stealth game. I'm sleuthing around. I'm being sneaky. I guess my first hint I'm going to ask for is just to clarify, this is not a mobile game.
Well, so here's some additional information that I have.
Okay.
I also pulled the Metacritic score, the platforms, the year, and a few kind of like, I don't want to say accolades, but like rankings within that year. So I feel like if we're going to start asking questions about platform, know that nothing is off the table. So it could be mobile, could be stationary.
Okay.
Whatever the opposite of mobile game is. So yeah, we can choose when you feel you need those lifelines. Those are the ones that are available to you, but nothing is off the table.
Nothing is off the table to me. Is this a Plants vs. Zombies game?
No, that'll count as your first guess. It is not a Plants vs. Zombies.
I'm thinking about very sort of neighborhood-ish / not necessarily domestic, but very suburban America is what's in my head for some reason. Okay. For my second guess, is this a Hitman game?
It's not a Hitman game.
Okay. I know I'm going I shouldn't go so broad with my guesses.
No, it's all right. It's
but I'm thinking like,
these are not bad guesses based on the information you have. Let me know if you would like to pull in any of those lifelines. Okay. Actually, how about I'll give you the rankings of just funny little rankings.
Okay.
That may or may not help, but
yes, this is actually good. This is a new canonical rule is we can provide strange accolades / rankings. That is good. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay. So it was the number 85 best platform, like the platform that it's on. Okay. I won't give it away because you didn't ask for it. So number 85 on that platform of the year 2006. Number 55 most discussed on that platform in 2006. And number 4 most shared on that platform in 2006.
I've got 2006 on the brain. We are in that is end of PlayStation 2 Xbox, or is that the beginning of the 360?
I think it's kind of right after that transition.
Yeah.
Pretty soon after.
Because I remember Madden 06 was like the first one with better graphics, and they made the gameplay crappy again. As Madden is wont to do with generational transitions. Oh man, that makes me, because that was back when I feel like people took more chances on, or like big publishers took more chances on like kind of strange IP.
Mm-hmm. So you still have available to you the Metacritic score and the platforms that it was on.
Yeah, give me the Metacritic score.
Metacritic score is a 54.
Oh, okay. It's kind of a stinker. That's
the number 4 most shared. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Number 4 most shared. So it's probably pretty known for being a stinker. Or, I mean, stinker is kind of like middling to bad, right? Like 54, I guess, is average.
Yeah.
If one is to assume 50 is average, which it probably isn't. I guess I'm going to ask, is this a licensed game?
This is a licensed game, yes.
Ooh. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, I feel like I'm right there. I've only got one guess left, so I really want to make it count. You don't have to tell me the platform, but could you tell me if it's known for being on one particular platform?
Yes. It is an exclusive to one company's platforms.
Platforms. Is this Lumberyard? Kind of sneaky, stealthy. Is this a Gex game?
It's not a Gex game. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Give me the bad news.
All right. This was on the Xbox and Xbox 360. It was a disc that worked in both systems.
Wait, is it brute force?
No.
Okay. All right. Fine. I really don't know.
All right. I'll read the description. You'll get it pretty much immediately.
Okay.
So, only the king can turn an everyday act into an art form, and now players can step into the king's royal shoes and use cunning stealth to sneak up behind unsuspecting people and bestow them with a delicious meal. The goal of Sneak King is to surprise hungry citizens with Burger King sandwiches and other menu items throughout the day before they pass out from hunger. Whether in a logging yard, construction site, suburban neighborhood, or a downtown urban scene, each rich with detail and hidden pathways, players can hide out and earn points based on how elaborate the delivery is executed.
Oh my God. First of all, how dare you, Internet, give this a 54? Sneaking was a 100.
It was the 85th best 360 game of 2006, the number 55 most discussed, and number 4 most shared, whatever that means.
I feel like it is. Yeah, that's a good point. I think Sneaking weirdly has kind of become this cult game, right? I feel like in my mind, it's fully beloved because it was just so incredible that, like a fast food company did a video game tie-in at that point. It was already very rare. And then secondly, that it was like weirdly playable.
Yeah. It came out alongside 2 other Burger King licensed games, which I don't remember being anywhere near as acclaimed. I think one was a racing game and the other was just like a bumper car game or something like that.
Yeah. I remember that bumper car game. It was fun.
I do still have this one on my shelf.
Sneaking is so good. 54. I think Sneak King got a raw deal. It probably deserves its 54 if I went back and played it now, but in my mind, that is, I feel like it should be in the 70s or something like that.
Anyways, good game. I feel like we were right there, you know?
I was kind of right about like strange characters and in a weird stealthy, but I don't recall the lumberyard. I don't really associate that with the Burger King brand. I feel like
that is an odd one.
I feel like he was in a garden. Like I remember the garden, like you're in hedges.
First
or
level
bushes.
was a suburban neighborhood.
Okay.
I think like if I really think back, I think I can remember the lumberyard and the construction site, but it is just kind of an odd.
It's foggy.
I think you're just kind of showing up in unexpected places.
Right. Man, bring back the King Burger King. I mean, not right now.
I know,
Now's not the time for the King, but like in like 8-10 months, maybe bring back the King. I think we could all use a visit from the King.
All right. Anyways, that will do it for us today. We'll catch you next week, everyone.
Bye.